Hero Packaging went through a really time in 2022, and it was so bad that we had no money in the business, we had no cash, we had no profit. It was high revenue, absolutely no money. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was so upset. I've got 3 kids, right? So you have to differentiate between like stressed at work but then coming home and being happy. I couldn't do it. I was crying like literally into their breakfast bowl. What actually happened, and I haven't actually said this before, you know what? You get to 20,000 followers on any platform.
You can do really well.
You could sell any product you want. You could start any service-based business. You could do whatever you want.
Yeah.
If you can master content, you've mastered a lot of your business. Honestly, I believe that brands do not know how to master organic content, and they try so hard. They don't know how to do it. So what's the secret sauce? The secret sauce is you have to understand the journey, and you can't understand the journey without making the mistake. Another one is stop giving a there's a point in time where you just have to stop caring about other people's opinions. And I love my parents more than anything in this world. If I had listened to even one piece of advice about starting a business, I wouldn't be here. When an influencer holds up a product now, it means nothing to anybody, because how do you make your brand interesting when your product is not that interesting? That should be a book in itself. If you don't have an audience, then you need to run a giveaway through ads in order to collect email addresses and then launch the product. That's honestly the only way. This is what I've heard through a good source.
All right, guys, we have another really great e-com episode for you today. We had Anaita in the house, the founder and CEO of Hero Packaging. She's also the creator of How to Sell Anything Online. So it's a very educational episode for all of you e-com lovers, everyone in business. So we cover everything like Facebook ads, TikTok, organic content, Google ads, email marketing, really the whole picture, website optimization, everything you need to know to launch a successful business and scale it and what that looks like using each of the channels. So I'll leave the intro there. Before we get into it, can I ask for a few favors if I can? If you're watching on YouTube, could you do me a massive favor? Like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We've got heaps of great guests coming up and a lot more in e-com, so I know you guys will be keen for those. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could leave me a 5-star review, I'd really, really appreciate it. It helps the channel out more than you know. And I'd just be super grateful. So thank you. Thank you for everyone that's been doing it lately. It doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you so much. Let's get into the podcast. All right, we're back again. Another great e-com episode. We've got 2 in a row here. We got Anaita Sarkar. Fuck. Why do I do this? Why do I stuff up people's names all the time?
Who cares?
I went to Casula High. I was like, surrounded by people with different names all the time, and I'd never struggled.
It's because your mind's working too fast. Your mouth hasn't
my lips go
up.
too fast. For my brain. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, so we got Anaita Sarkar on the podcast today. There we go. Give you a little clap for that. So the CEO and co-founder of Hero Packaging. A lot of e-com listeners, I'm sure heaps of them would have seen your products, bought your products over the last few years. I've been on a really crazy journey with Hero Packaging, so super keen to talk about all of that. You're also the founder / creator of this whole movement, Sell Anything Online. It's really funny. When I jumped on your website, I'm like, how do you explain what this is? And then listening to you explain it, you're like, yeah, I don't know, founder, creator, like what are you? But it's really cool, this whole movement around marketing and entrepreneurship. For those of you who think that sounds familiar, you might have seen her on Instagram or TikTok, over 330K followers on TikTok, dropping loads of great insights and value, and the author of the book of the same name. So How to Sell Anything Online, the ultimate marketing playbook to grow your online business.
Yes.
Pretty cool.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we're just chatting. We did another mini podcast off air. So we had a really good pre-podcast conversation. So the vibes are flowing in here at the moment. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, that is the book. It came out about 2 months ago now, almost end of July 31st. Really cool book.
You really have done your research.
I do my research. It's what I do. You got to bring something different. I've read a lot of the reviews, heaps of really good reviews on the book as well. So congratulations on that. I'm keen to fully go through it myself. But where we'll start, we'll get to the book and some of the value and some of the things you speak about. For those in e-com, we're going to touch on everything you need to know: organic content, meta ads, Google, loyalty programs, all those sorts of things that are involved with building a successful e-com brand. So I always get anytime we do podcasts outside of e-com, do some more e-com podcasts. So here we go. We got another great e-com one. But where we will start is obviously Hero Packaging. It's kind of, I know it wasn't your first business. We'll speak a little bit in a second about the one you had before that, but it's the one that put you on the map, really. Right. It's the one you cut your teeth in, where you got all these great lessons and learnings that you've been able to, give to people with the consulting or the keynote speaking or obviously in your book. So let's rewind to the day. What put the idea in your head for Hero Packaging, and what did that very early stages of the process look like?
Hero Packaging was a business that was not meant to be a business. It was just like an idea, I think. I had another business and it was selling personalized accessories, and I was selling a lot of those, and I was kind of piggybacking off another successful brand, and I was like, this is amazing. I was selling on eBay, Etsy, and so like orders were coming in the door. And by that stage I had 2 kids and it was school holidays and it was like peak season. So you know what peak season's like. And it was like packages on packages on packages waiting for the postman, and it was like plastic, plastic, plastic. The kids were sitting there amongst all of the packages and like just playing with all the plastic stuff, and they're like, this is so fun. It's like it felt like confetti, and I just looked at it and I went, that looks terrible. Like I cannot believe that is what I am doing, and I'm no sustainability guru. But I looked at that and I knew it was horrible, and I just remember thinking, surely I can not have that in my business. And so that was it. Honestly, there was an idea, and I went back home and I just like Googled sustainable things that are like plastic but not plastic that are mailers. I was trying to type in anything into Google, and then I just found boxes, and I was like, this is rubbish. But then I went to Woolies or Coles and I saw those compostable vegetable bags, and I was like, I reckon I could do that. Surely I can make that. That's easy. And so then I went to Alibaba and I was like, how can I replicate this but make it thicker and not so transparent? And no one would actually do it. So then I had to go and actually find like resins and send it to a plastic bag manufacturer. And I don't know what got into me, but I was obsessed with the idea of it. And so it took me 9 bloody months to find a solution to this. Finally got a prototype that I loved, had to order 10,000 of them because the minimum order is 10,000. I wasn't shipping out that many goods. So I was like, fuck. And so then I had some business friends and I was like, hey, do you guys want them? And they were all like, yes, 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 yes. So then I called my husband. I said, I've got a business idea. And that's basically where it started.
So that was all like, that wasn't any Hero Packaging branding at that point.
No,
you were just like created a product to solve a problem that you were experiencing, and you realized, got a little bit too much stock here. What do we do with that? That's cool. I love businesses that are inspired by like real life problems.
Yeah.
And obviously, like you hear these people speak about their experiences all the time. They're often the ones that perform best, right? So that's really cool. So you get the product. What's the early stages of that business journey look like? I always ask people, like, for the first like 100K of revenue, where did you find those sales?
Yeah, mine wasn't the goal of 100K of revenue. Mine was getting our first 100 customers, because my husband, who was working as the head of e-com for one of eBay's biggest like retailers, I said to him, come and work in the business. He's like, we haven't even made $1. You don't even have a website. What are you talking about? I said, I'll run this previous business and you run this business and we'll make a lot of money. And then he said to me, if you can get our first 100 customers, I'll leave my job. And I was like, I'll get you our first 100 customers. So all I did was I built a landing page and I just said, get free samples of compostable mailers. And I ran a Google ad to that landing page. And I did like $20-$30 a day or something, 7 days, 1,000 email subscribers just from, because the keywords were sustainable packaging, eco-friendly packaging, green packaging, some random stuff like that. And if they wanted a sample, they just put in their email address and shipping address, got 1,000 people. So I went back to my husband and said, well, we've got 1,000 people. He's like, they're not customers. Those are just people who've signed up. We need 100 customers. So we just played the waiting game, and essentially 2 months later, 700 of those people came back, about 70%. So
That's really good.
Then he left his job. Yeah, it was really good because it was not that expensive compared to plastic, and it was compostable. So it was like a no-brainer almost.
So were you like nurturing these people with like a sequence of emails, or literally signed up, you just waited?
Just waited.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was, I remember sending it off, and we packed these obviously on the dining table as most brands do, but we packed it, and then inside we had a little handwritten message to these people. It took us so bloody long.
I can imagine.
Also, free samples are not free samples, right? Like it's $7.50 in shipping for each bloody one. So it cost us a lot of money, but then we got so many customers, and all of a sudden Hero Packaging, was on the map within the first few months.
I remember seeing you guys pop up. When did you launch?
2018.
Yeah, that same year as us.
Yes.
Same year as us, 2018. Class of 2018.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah.
We made it together. That was a really cool time in e-commerce. Like I feel like that was there was like the few brands that came before us, but we were like the start of like the real e-com boom in Australia.
The cool e-com
when it started to be like, we'll go with that, the cool e-com brands. We'll get into the kind of the scaling of the business and the marketing because obviously that's like your speciality in a minute. But what's really interesting, you created a product, you had that kind of very early mover, first mover to market in Australia.
Yeah.
How has the crazy rise of competition affected the business over like the 6 years plus since you started? What was that like for you as well as someone who actually went out of their way to create a product?
Yeah.
And then you see, you know, people trying to, you know, and it happens to everyone successful.
It happens to everyone.
But it's, you know, just hearing people's experiences with that is always interesting to me.
Oh, actually, people like ignore the competition, stay in your own lane. It's so hard though.
Oh, it is.
It makes me so annoyed and I hate them. I know that sounds so bad. I know that this is the truth though, because when you are a brand owner and all of a sudden people are copying your copy on your website, your content strategy, every product you bring in, they're copying the exact same thing. And every time I bring something out, 3 weeks later, they're like announcing that in 2 months they're going to bring it out. And you're like, but that's not fair because we came up with this idea.
Yeah.
And so I know everyone is like, just stay in your own lane, like be happy with what you are, like focus on your own brand. I'll tell you what, to this day, I still worry about it, right? But what I know to be true is that we are the number one sustainable packaging company in Australia. I also know what else is true is that the secret sauce is probably me because I do a lot of content. I'm working all the time in content, showing up. I host panels. I'm doing keynotes. I'm trying to get Hero Packaging on the map constantly. I know that the brand is more of a brand than it is a product business. So I focus on the brand marketing and I make it fun and relatable and cool and fresh. And everyone else who's a competitor is focusing on products and products only because they don't know anything else about a brand. So if I focus it on that way and I think I own the majority of the market that way, I should be happy with where I am. That's fine. But the minute someone mentions another brand that's competing with me, you know, that I get triggered by it still because it affects me so much. I just feel like this is my thing. Like we created this thing and how are people able to just piggyback off that? It's so not fair.
I guess like one thing to like take solace in or like make you feel better about this with your specific product, the more people using sustainable packaging, the better for the planet, right? So
Absolutely.
At least like you've created a wave that is doing good things for the planet. And now technically some of them probably would have come to you for sure if these other competitors didn't exist. But there's only so much one brand can do. So again, that's not much solace when there's all these brands, you know, coming in and legit, I know I've been there ripping off your website word for word, stealing your content, photoshopping out the logo, posting it in their own ads. I've been there. And like you said as well, people can say, oh, don't worry, ignore it. Just ignore it. Focus on you, stay in your lane.
But and we do.
For sure.
We do, but it's still hard.
100%. And it's okay. If there was one competitor doing that, you're like, sweet, they're copying us. They're always going to be behind us. They don't know why we're doing anything. They don't know the strategy behind it. But when there's 50 people doing that to your business, obviously it can have an effect. And I think like only the best businesses really stand the test of time when it comes to a really competitive industry like that.
You can feel the anger and you can feel like annoyed by it, but it shouldn't derail you. Like that anger and that annoyance shouldn't make you go, oh, now I've got to do what they're doing and like let me keep watching them and stuff. You are allowed to feel angry about it, but I think if you just keep on pushing ahead and know that wherever you are, they're just going to be like 10 steps behind. It's a nice feeling. Actually, I'll tell you what happened to me. We raised money like a couple of years ago, and one of these big investors, I don't think I should mention the name, but one of these big investors who's in Australia, he was on a Zoom call with us and he said, so there's Hero Packaging, and he mentioned our competitors and he goes, oh, but they're just like they're just the little names, aren't they? And I was like, oh my God, that made me feel so good. Sometimes we think so highly of our competitors, but actually if you are first to market and you're the one who's being innovative, fuck them.
Yeah. So what do you think? You kind of mentioned that you're the secret sauce and kind of that brand focus, but is there anything that comes to mind as how you were able to come through the other side through all that and last so many years in an industry that became so competitive?
Yeah, because my focus in Hero Packaging is to be everywhere all at once. Like it's something that I have written about a number of times is I am everywhere all at once. You can't go onto Facebook without seeing my ads or seeing me, or you cannot go open Instagram. If you follow me or if you go on TikTok, I feel like I'm everywhere and I'm purposely so. Because if you see me, you will always remember that if you need sustainable packaging, you come to me. And whether if you remember Anita's name or you remember Hero Packaging's name, it doesn't matter because I'm one and the same. And so like I just focus on being everywhere all at once, and I try and do it in a really cheap way. So organic content, SEO, and then I'll amplify with paid ads as well.
With that as well, as I mentioned, we came to the same class of 2018 together. So I'd been on your website plenty of times in the past, and we've even ordered. I'm 100% sure we've used you guys in the past as well. I came on to do my research. You guys have expanded your product range heaps.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that journey and what motivated, like when I was there, it was just the satchels.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But now you've got a whole range of products and you do customization.
Yes.
What was the motivation behind that pivot for the brand? Because it's even more so differentiated you to any of your other competitors.
I would say innovate or die is my answer to that. But if I'm going to be more specific, Hero Packaging went through a really shit time in 2022, at the end of 2022. And it was so bad that, we had no money in the business. We had no cash. We had no profit. It was high revenue, absolutely no money. And I felt like I how do you explain it? Felt like I couldn't breathe. I was so upset every day. And I've got 3 kids, right? So you have to differentiate between like being stressed at work, but then coming home and being happy. I couldn't do it. I was crying like literally into their breakfast bowls. I was so unhappy, and something had to change. And either we were going to close down Hero Packaging because there was no other option, or it was use our personal funds, buy it back into a place of zero and start again. And if we were going to do that, we had to think of ourselves like really expansively. And if we do that, what does that mean? We can't just have the same products. We have to have new products. We have to be able to do things that people really want. And for years and years, people had asked us to customize. And we thought, that means about $500,000 worth of machinery. Is it worth it? Yes, let's try it. We already failed. So we tried it, and luckily, our business is like growing again. And we're now having products in the business that are actually profitable. So we get people in with our best sellers, which is the mailers, and then we have all these other things that they want to.
It's really impressive to go to that level, and I'm sure you had to face your own ego multiple times and realize, hey, what are we doing here? Do we even want to continue doing this?
Yeah.
Why are we still doing this?
The ego thing was hard. Like
so hard,
makes
right?
me feel, yeah. So actually one of my friends, who's this guy, no offense, but he came to me, and he's a really good friend of mine, and he is pretty high up in a corporate place. And he said to me, I just don't think you're a good CEO. And
ouch.
Yeah. And I had a big cry about it, obviously. And then I said to Vic, who's my partner, I think he's right, because I didn't look at the numbers. What CEO doesn't look at the numbers of their business? That is so shit. Like, how can I not have done that for 6 months? And I actually felt like that. I was a bad CEO, and my ego was really hurt too. So it's not only that the business failed, but also I failed because I thought I was doing so well. And how did I not know?
On that moment you've had of that, where do you sit with that now? Do you even want to be a CEO?
No.
Yeah.
I don't.
Same.
I don't want to be a CEO.
Me either.
I had the title because I was the founder of the business, and then we had to raise funds, and so we had to name ourselves something. And all of a sudden, I'm the CEO, Vic's the COO, and we became like C-suite. What do you mean? No, I'm a founder first.
Exactly.
I'm a founder. I like the nitty-gritty stuff.
I think there's a big difference between founders and CEOs.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. It's a big difference, because CEOs are made for the corporate world.
Yeah.
Right. CEOs are running these multi-level groups of people and in different silos. We are founders. We like all that stuff, like the feeling of the stuff, the excitement of starting something new, taking risks. The minute you become a CEO, you're not a risk taker anymore. And that is, I don't want to be a CEO.
And you can't be a CEO and have your book that you're writing and this other business you're starting, and
That's
then future
right.
memories like you knew, like it's like you're CEO, you live and breathe this one thing.
And people question you on it. They're like, how can you be a CEO and do all these things? Why do you have a TikTok account? And I'm like, because I enjoy it. That's what I enjoy. I want to talk about marketing, and it's it's something that I do on my Friday night is read about e-commerce and marketing. I'm such a nerd, but I love it so much. And so people will look at me and be like, well, she's not focusing on Hero Packaging. It's not the case, but I don't want to be labeled as a CEO.
Yeah. It's very interesting. And I think I had to, because we went through a phase, we hired a decent sized team, maybe like 15 of us, and I started looking at my days and what I was spending my time on, and, how much people management and not micromanagement, but how much time I had to spend of my own time doing, certain elements of the business I didn't enjoy. And I realized, what is this like obsession with being a CEO, right? That you have to do. And we get into e-com and people think like, oh, that's the natural progression. It's not like it doesn't have to be like that. You know what I mean? Like we've had some really successful people on the podcast. Joshua Sparks comes to mind. He's been CEO of like multiple 9-figure brands, and the conversation I had with him was so good. I learned so much. The way he talks about it and what's involved with all that, I thought, fuck, I could not think of anything worse than forcing myself to do that.
Yeah, it's my worst nightmare.
Like we were talking before, I'm like, I just love the build, the excitement, the new ideas. Let's build something. Let's go to market. Like, let's get people excited about it. Let's start to scale the marketing. Then when we want to turn the business into a different thing.
So what do you suggest? Do you suggest like continuing to be the founder and just like thinking founder-led thoughts and then hiring someone in the CEO role? Like, what's your advice?
For sure. I think that's definitely what I'll do next time.
Yes.
I didn't hire a CEO for Happy Skin Co. I wish I did. I had a CFO who did a lot of that stuff for me, obviously, which was lucky. And the CEO was my cousin, and
nice.
CFO was my cousin. So he really kept me accountable to things, and I didn't have the ability just to, turn my back and not deal with it. But it's also a blessing and a curse because I just put so much trust in. Lucky I could trust him, because otherwise things would have changed. But I think, when we talk about that, how big of a company do you need to be to hire a CEO? You can't hire a CEO with 10 people.
Right.
So there's going to come a point where, and I think
someone's got to do the job.
I think that's where the most important thing is probably the awareness for when it's right and if you're right for it.
Yeah.
Just a quick one from me. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you'd know that after scaling Happy Skin Co. to over $10 million per year, I spent close to 18 months creating the Viral Brand Builder program, which teaches someone with zero experience how to launch and scale their very own e-commerce brand. With over 100 training videos and direct access to me, including one-on-one calls, you'll be guided throughout the entire process. Now, we already have a bunch of incredible results from students that are making multiple 5 and 6 figures per month. So if you want to learn how to build a business that has the potential to completely change your life, then click the link in the description and book in an application call today. Spots are limited as you'll be speaking directly to me. So hopefully I'll chat to some of you soon. But until then, let's get back to the podcast. What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that you have to understand the journey, and you can't understand the journey without making the mistake. Like you actually can't. Like you can't 100%. Tell somebody, oh, you're at $5 million, now it's time to hire. It doesn't work like that. Every business is different. So like, if you were to ask me a question of like, what would you like to tell your previous self, like before you started a business? I'd be like, nothing, because you have to go through the journey to actually get to this point. And that's the only, like for me, you can't tell someone, don't be a CEO or be a CEO. It doesn't work that way.
100%. And I think like if you're early in the process, get honest with yourself now before you're at that stage. Then you have the clarity of mind to know which way you're going to go and not try and pressure yourself into being something you're not, because then you're not going to do your best work. You're going to enjoy what you're doing less. You're going to lose fulfillment, and you're going to be a lot more likely to go down that process of falling out of love with your business. And I feel like, the awareness of that and how I would do things differently in terms of like the operational management or the leadership of a business in terms of the day-to-day. I was telling you before, day-to-day in Happy Skin Co, I spend very little time.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can really do a business justice and have all these other separate things and be the CEO. But some people are great operators and they live for the nuts and bolts of the business and the dotting the T's, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, all that sort of stuff. So just the awareness around that piece. But I wanted to speak about, you brought it up, that challenge you went through. What was the major lesson from that period? So for the context, you hired an external CFO.
I did, yeah.
Kind of explain that story if you can for us.
We hired an external CFO when we realized we wanted to raise funds in the business. And then I stopped looking at the accounts. So she came in and she would manage everything. She made us a cash flow plan. She managed the accounts. She would do everything with the tax office. Everything was fine. I didn't need to look at it. Good. And then when we got these 2 guys who came in and they were kind of looking at our business to grow it, to sell it, and they looked at it and they did such a deep dive into the business, and they said to me, you are in such a bad state. And it was the Christmas lunch. I remember that so clearly. Everyone was waiting for us for the Christmas lunch. And I thought it was going to be a good meeting, but I walked out of it so upset. And they just said, you don't have any money in the business. Like, what are you doing? You can't pay our bill. You can't pay any bills. Like, yeah, that was basically what happened. The lesson in this whole thing is that one is I didn't look at the numbers, of course. So that's a big mistake. It's all on me for 6 months. I didn't even bother. what actually happened, and I haven't actually said this before, is that she created this cash flow plan for us. And, we're doing some big numbers, and our cash flow plan meant like we had, $50,000 of a bill here, $100,000 of a bill there. And there are some bills she forgot to include in the cash flow plan. So we're basing off like our whole business on a plan that we think we're fine with. But when it came to it, there's like $300,000 that were unaccounted for in the plan, and we didn't have the cash for. We didn't know how to pay it, and she'd gotten us loans on loans, and it was in a really really bad situation. So when I approached her, and this was a little bit after we heard the news, and I said, "How come you didn't tell us? Like, how come you didn't tell us we were in a bad place?" And she said, "Oh, I tried to." These were her words. She said, "I did try to tell you, but like I didn't know how to approach it." And I was like, "It's your job as an accountant to tell me when I'm doing the wrong thing, because I'm really not good with this stuff." And I'm like I said, I'm taking full accountability. So I don't want anyone listening to this being like, it's not the accountant's fault. It's her fault and my fault. My fault majorly, but for her, it was a lot of things that she said, and I couldn't believe she didn't tell me earlier. We could have fixed it. We could have just not gotten the loans. We didn't have to order that new stock. It's fine. We could have just waited. But you get us into this place where we've gotten loans for stock, loans for marketing, loans for this, and then we're also, the cash flow plan doesn't account for $200,000. Where do we go from here? And so the lesson is, don't rely on the experts. You just can't. You have to, like, if you have an expert, I don't care if it's your bloody TikTok content creator that comes in, you can't rely on them. You can't rely on anyone it's you, it's your business. And if you're at a stage of $30 million, fine, rely on whoever you want. But, because you're able to hire good people, you're able to pay the best of the best. When you're small, you have to do everything. And that's a founder thing. And unfortunately, if you're the CEO and you're a small business, you have to do every single thing.
Upon reflection, what was it in your mind that had shifted, or was it a subconscious thing? What made you check out? Was it you didn't want to deal with it, you didn't enjoy it, it was making you uncomfortable, you just blindly trusted? Upon reflection, what was it that you had in yourself that the lesson was, I needed to do it anyway?
The numbers thing, I just blindly trusted. And also I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I thought, we got to a stage where we actually got to hire an external CFO. It was so exciting. And so why would I need to look at my profit and loss daily?
Yeah.
What's the point? She's doing it. She's building us this complex cash flow plan. I looked at it every month, and it was looking great. Like we had some money there sitting left over, and I was like, this is fantastic. That's it.
How did you end that relationship? Was it just at that point, like, clearly you've got to go?
Yeah, it was a little while, because when you switch accountants, it's a bit of a process, and we were trying to inquire and do all these things, and we found someone, and luckily they were really good, but it took a while. And then the feedback, I wanted to give feedback to the accounting firm, but my husband was saying to me, just be careful. You don't want to piss anyone off in the industry or in any industry. Don't give feedback. Just leave it. They fucked us. Let's leave it alone. And my instinct was to just go really, really hard, name and shame. Luckily, he was like, don't do that.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy he told me that, because if it was up to me, I would have been I would have just gone out publicly and said it. And, I've got an audience, so I would have just said it. I'm really happy I didn't. It's really hard, all you want to do is like leave them a bad review and stuff. But Vic was like, just don't do it.
I think you've made the right decision. I've myself a couple of times wrote a very frustrated, angry email, and just thought about it, and I'm like, probably shouldn't send this.
Yes.
And deleted it. And every time I've deleted it, I'm glad I didn't.
Yes. You're glad you didn't send it?
Yeah, big time.
Oh my gosh. I've done that I've pissed off so many people online too, because sometimes you want to say the truth, and it's not about making anyone's reputation look bad, but you want to tell people what e-commerce is really like. And I had this thing on my Friday nights when I wasn't doing anything. It would be called my unhinged thoughts, and I would go off on like e-commerce things, like coaching agencies. I would tell people my actual thoughts about certain things that e-commerce people do, and people started to get really pissed off. And I thought, it's way too much negativity, even though I'm trying to be honest and help. And so from now on, I'm like, you know what, if you want to come to me one-on-one and ask me a question and hear my real thoughts about something, I'll absolutely help you.
Anytime anyone puts themselves out there and starts doing something new, people are going to have a problem with it. in Australia.
Especially if it's not positive. If you're going to be positive about everyone and everything and think everything's hunky-dory, you're fine. People will be like fine with you. The minute you try and say something that's a little off center, it's not great.
I would disagree. I feel like even if you are being positive, some people will still find a problem with it.
Yeah, maybe.
You can't like you can't win.
No,
if you get big enough and loud enough, and I don't know, I mean, I'm not a female. I haven't had that experience, but I kind of hear from females, and I've heard this story on podcasts a lot more. If you are a female and you start being loud and speaking about things, you're probably even more likely to get the haters and trying to bring you back down. Is that something you kind of felt like you experienced yourself?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, all the time. Like, but the thing is that I don't know whether, I mean, it's not about the positivity and negativity, but the more I say that I'm really confident, or I feel like I speak well on stage, or if I say that I think I know how to run an e-com business, or break down e-commerce facts easily, or whatever I say that's good, there are a lot of people who'll be like,
she's cocky.
Like a TikTok comment. And if you go viral, it's even worse because you're hitting people who have absolutely no idea, but they have all the opinions in the world.
They make all the assumptions based off that 30-second or 60-second clip of you speaking.
Yeah, and who are they?
Exactly.
And they love to just be a keyboard warrior. But absolutely, like in Australia, I do find that. And I did make a TikTok video on this where I was like, I went to New York for a week, and over there I was allowed to say, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to make this much money, I want to have this contact, I want to sell hero packaging over here, I want to have a contact at Amazon, I want to do this. I would say all these things and people were like, great, I'll connect you. Like,
that's completely normal there.
Completely normal. And not only did they say, I'll connect you, I would get emails on emails, follow-ups like, hey, did you contact this person? It was incredible. And then when you come here, it's not the same. I don't know. I don't think it's a girl and boy thing, but it's an Australian thing. Yeah.
It's an Australia thing. I remember I was doing some stuff, this is ages ago, with like a big PR person in Australia, and he's introducing me to all these like super successful people from around the world, and he's introducing them to me and me to them, and telling them my story. And I remember the first couple of times I was like, oh no, it's not that big a deal, whatever. Then I thought to myself, like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this guy's going out of his way to like introduce me and like gives me a spiel, makes me look good. And then I'm like minimizing it, because it's just what we do in Australia.
It's so natural
and
for
I
us
realized
to do that.
I'm not going to do that anymore. Like, I don't care. I don't care how it makes me look to anyone else, but like, you got to put your best foot forward and own your achievements and own your strengths and own what you've done. Because if you don't, someone else will. And even if they're not as qualified as you, they will get the opportunity because they didn't shy away from it.
I couldn't agree with that more. And do you know what that comes down to? Like, even when I get emails to say, there's a conference, can you speak at it? My first question is, what's your budget? Because before I'd say yes to every single thing. Like, and of course, that's such a good thing when you start. Okay, please.
You got to get the reps on the board.
I do love the yeses. Okay, I'm a very yes person. But nowadays, I know what value I can bring. I know my worth. And so I'll say, what's your budget? And if they say, I'll always negotiate it, but there is a budget. There is always money involved when it comes to these things, because you get that confidence over time.
Do you like speaking at events?
Yeah, it's my favorite thing to do. You don't like it?
You'd think I would, because I'm an extrovert.
No, actually, I don't agree. I think you're an extrovert, so you like one-to-one relationships. I like one-to-many, so I don't have all of.
You don't have to go as
right.
But I love I love doing speeches. I don't get nervous from it.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. I just feel like maybe I just got to increase what I charge when people ask, because it's like it's so much work. If you like, unless you have. Like
I think you do need to increase.
You do this all the time, right?
Yeah.
When I'm just doing an ad hoc couple here and there, they want to speak about a certain thing. It's like not an hour of my time to go speak. It's like, okay, I've got to plan what I'm going to say, and then I've got to create this blah, 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 blah.
You do, yeah.
So, yeah. But interesting. I wanted to ask you before we move on past hero packaging to all the more current, hero packaging is current, but some of the like how to sell anything online stuff. How was that conversation with your husband when you had to make the decision to put more of your own personal money into it? Was it a difficult decision? Did you just have the clarity from the start? How did you come to that decision?
Well, we've been together for 20 years and we've been married for like 13 or 14 years, and our goals are the same. So our vision is the same. We, when it comes, we have properties, and when it comes to giving our money away to property or to shares or to start a new business or investing our personal funds to pull our business out, we sit down together and we have that conversation, and it's usually the same answer. And it's really nice to be in business with someone who is on the exact same like vision board as you. And so it wasn't much of a decision. It was very hard because we didn't want to have to give our personal funds away. You know, we've worked really hard for that over time, and we thought, what is this going to mean for our person, like us personally? But we knew that Hero was worth it. And so we had to bring it back to zero. So it wasn't really much of a disagreement or anything. It was a conversation over time, and we came to that solution.
I love that. You've seen a lot more recently, or maybe I'm just more exposed because of the podcast, a lot of people's like partners getting involved in their business and working together, and it's like become like the best thing.
It really
Scylla
is.
was saying that she brought her husband in. Raquel and Adam, I'm pretty close with.
Yeah.
They love working together.
They do.
Hearing you and your husband as well. I work with my partner on a few things as well, and it's great. So yeah, it's
some people, if you know that you can work with them, great, and if you know you can't, also great.
then don't. Yeah, don't
Also
try to force
great.
it. Just last thing on Hero Packaging, obviously you treat it like it is an e-commerce brand, but also it's kind of a different sort of category of product. What is the scaling of Hero Packaging in terms of the sales and the revenue look like? What channels did you utilize to scale? How did you kind of approach that growth process?
That's a great question. To scale Hero, look, our major revenue sources are Facebook ads and Google ads, and that's how we scaled Hero Packaging to where it is. Organic content, people are lying to you if they say that that's how they scaled their business. We did it through paid channels. What's next for us, though, is international expansion. We already tried it in America, and we set up a warehouse over there. Didn't work because we made a lot of money and we lost a lot of money because of shipping and stuff. We couldn't figure it out. Also because we were here and no one was there, we couldn't do it
Very
properly.
difficult.
Yes. So we're now going to do it in a different way. And so international expansion is going to be a massive thing for us. I think that's a huge part of it. We've also just bought more machines to do more manufacturing in-house. So now we're Australian manufactured boxes, and that's another avenue. So, you know, when you're talking about expanding, you talk about same products to new people or new products to the same people. So we're trying to do both things. And we're also going to try and do new products to new people. So that is having like boxes and things for people in America and Canada as well.
It's exciting. That's like when you think about the future and what that kind of business runway can look like, you've got a pretty big plan for a while to go and execute on that vision. So exciting times in the Hero Packaging
stressful
world.
times.
Stressful, as of course, I wouldn't expect anything less. But talk to me about how, you know, this whole new business venture that you've went on, how did it start? Did it start as a book? Did it start as a TikTok? How to sell anything online? A lot of people would have seen you, whether it be on Instagram or obviously more people on TikTok. How did that start and why?
It started, I had written let me start from the beginning. I had a business, which I told you about, and I sold that business when I was growing Hero Packaging, and I used the same strategies for both, even though they were wildly different. So same strategies for both, and I thought I could really help a lot of people by documenting the same strategies and how I did it in a really easy to understand format. So I wrote a book, and it was called Sell Anything Online, and the books were delivered home, and I had no way to sell them, so I just created a TikTok account to sell them basically. And every day I would say a marketing tip or a business tip or an e-commerce tip, and I did it so many times every single day. And I did that for a very long time, and the followers grew naturally. You know, the more you do, the more they come. And so I did that for quite a while. And then all of a sudden at certain milestones, say 50,000, 100,000, 150,000 people, I would get brands reaching out to me and being like, can you do some videos for us? You know, I got Facebook reaching out to me, TikTok reaching out to me saying, can you do a video for us to promote this new Facebook ads tip or something? So I would do that. I'd make money that way. And I realized, I think there's another business, but it wasn't a business where like it had to be my main business. It was just, I can have some cash flow, talk about what I love. And then I also run Hero Packaging. Like, why not?
Yeah.
And then I just kept on growing and growing. And so that was basically it. I wouldn't even call it a business, to be honest with you. So then I wrote my second book, and I got a publisher. They heard me speaking at South by Southwest last year.
Yep.
And so she said, I want you to write your second book, and it's going to be called How to Sell Anything Online. So I was like, great. So I wrote that.
So the first one was just sell anything online. I was confused when you said that. I'm like, wait, you did that ages ago, but this just launched. Am I missing something? Okay, yeah.
How to sell. It's just the extra 2 words. And I was like, great, I'll do that. And so, yeah, I wrote the second one.
I was talking to you before. Obviously, I had a lot of things on this week, so I didn't prepare early enough to get my hands on the book. But what I did, I was able to get which is really all I need to ask you certain questions, is the table of contents.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you just a few things from the book, just a few things that stood out that I think can, deliver a lot of value to the listeners. And obviously I'm putting you on the spot and I didn't have any of the questions. So I don't feel like you need to put your whole spiel, but just like whatever comes to mind. So something that stood out to me is you have a chapter called like some of your top business beliefs. What are some of the like top business beliefs or principles that you try and live by, whether it be for marketing or just business as a whole?
One is like be delusional.
I love that.
Yeah.
Based on what we're just talking about, I love that.
Be delusional, because if you really have a good product or service and you know you're going to be successful one day, like really believe it with everything that you have. I'm not really a woo-woo person at all, but I do believe in the success of what I do. And I do know that in 10 years' time, like I will be very successful. And I hope my husband also feels the same way. I do think that there's a certain number of people, I think you're probably the same. We just know.
It's that word no.
Yeah.
You said it and I took mental note of that when you said it. It's not believe. Let's think. I think I will. Very weak. Believe, still a little bit wishy-washy, but when someone says I know,
yeah,
I feel like it's grounded in something more.
Yeah. So be delusional is one of them. Another one is stop giving a fuck. And I think it's really important to me to say that to people. And people care a lot. I care a lot. I do care. But there's a point in time where you just have to stop caring about other people's opinions. And I love my parents more than anything in this world. But if I had listened to even one piece of advice about starting a business, I wouldn't be here. I would be still in my accounting job. And I would hate my life. I hated my life. And so you have to stop caring about other people. So those are probably my two top beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
My personal one, and I'm on a mission for this, is that as business owners, the main thing for me is stop caring about everyone else and just start believing in yourself. Be delusional as possible.
Do you have, because like you mentioned to me, I'm probably one of those people and I definitely am. Sometimes not that I struggle, I can explain it from my point of view, but to build that belief or that knowing, how do you really do that? Where do you think yours comes from? That ability to just, I know I'm going to be successful. And I feel like that's the number one thing you need going into a new venture, the 100% knowing or the belief, whatever you want to call it, that you will succeed. Do you know or have an opinion on where you think yours comes from?
No, I actually don't know. Sometimes you just feel it.
You just feel it,
You just
right?
feel it. I think also there's some kind of proof in the pudding. So is that a saying?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So you've built up these things that you've done that have been successful. So your gut feeling, when you've proved your gut feeling right over and over and over and over again, that magic feeling of confidence builds and builds and builds and builds. I don't know how to explain it other than maybe it's just things have gone right and I've trusted myself and they've gone right. I made some good decisions. Maybe that's the confidence.
That's kind of the way you're just explaining it. The proof in the pudding piece is the way, Alex Hormozi talks about building confidence. Just start like small achievement after small achievement after small achievement. They start getting bigger. And the proof is in the pudding. Like you said, you look back at it, you got, undisputable evidence that you are who you say you are. To me, it's just, and everyone's got to be honest here when they're thinking about themselves. Like for me, I know anything that I've fully put my mind to, I always get my way. Like I always succeed.
Yeah.
The problem with me throughout my life is I only recently last year found out I have ADHD. Like I was really good throughout school, never knew any of that. But like, unless I'm all in, like I really want to do something, I can be pretty shit at things as well. But I know if there's something that I really want and I put my mind to it, nothing can stop me.
Yeah.
So finding whatever that is to you, I think is important. Another thing I really liked when I was flicking through kind of the chapter summary of your book is your sales formula. Now there's the 4 elements in that. I'd love if you could, because like I said, a lot of like early stage entrepreneurs will be listening to this, break down each of the 4 steps and kind of what brands can do to build those things. That makes sense.
Yep, it's actually really easy. And this goes back to teaching at university, right? And it's like a marketing funnel. That's all it is. Marketing funnel, for people who don't really understand it, it's top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, and then you've got customer retention. So the way that I've broken it down is that top of funnel is people who don't know about you. So they're your perfect target market, but they don't know who you are as a brand yet. And then your middle of funnel people who have visited your website or they've gone to your social media, but they haven't added to cart. They've not like really done anything. Bottom of funnel are people who've added to cart but not yet purchased. And then people in the customer retention are people who have purchased from you and you just want them to purchase again. I've added an extra little level in there, which is the magic bucket, which is the community side of it. So the people who become the loyal, raving fans, A lot of brands don't know how to do that. They absolutely have no clue how to create a community. So what I did was I actually turned it into more of a step-by-step logical approach to how to build a community if you don't know how to do it. And so that's really the whole thing. So when you're talking about brand awareness, I go through things like influencer marketing, and not just influencer marketing, like hold up a product or send a product to an influencer and they'll post about it and you get more followers. I've spoken about the 4 types of cool influencer strategies that you can use, TikTok content and what you need to do for TikTok and get brand awareness, Facebook ads and so on. So each level of the funnel has these strategies, including, like SEO, Google ads, where they fit into the funnel. And then right at the end, my favorite part is just that community. And then what I did was, because I'm not the be all and end all of marketing, I actually interviewed a lot of really cool business owners in there as well. Like I've got the Brittany Saunders. I've got someone who was the head of ecom at LSKD. I've got TBH Skincare, Rachel. I've got lots of people who've really focused in on one part of the funnel that they've done really well. And I've kind of just interviewed them to make sure that the whole book is like really well-rounded.
That's really cool. On that, people always ask, they hear about ecom, they automatically think influencer marketing. It's changed a lot, since we started in business. What role do you feel like influencers play in 2024 and as we move into 2025?
We need to get influencers involved more with the product itself. Like they need to co-create a product with you so that they have skin in the game. I really feel like when an influencer holds up a product now, it means nothing to anybody because people know, obviously. We all know that. Like we know that style of marketing doesn't work anymore. But when Abby Chatfield has co-designed a vibrator with Vush, that vibrator, even though it's the same bloody vibrator as all the other vibrators, because Abby Chatfield has endorsed it and she actually put time into designing it, it will sell more. So co-creation of product is like, and then also influencers who already buy your stuff. And then if you pay them to actually talk about it in such a way that they're using it anyway, people have seen them use it, that is the way to use them. And also influencers who aren't influencers, people who are like the popular girl in high school who everyone like follows. She may not have like tens of thousands of followers on TikTok or Instagram, but at school you've got 500 girls who follow everything that she does. You've got to find those people. Like that is what influencers are.
It's really interesting. I love that co-creation piece. I've seen some brands do that really, really well. And I think, even the good influencers, a lot of them are starting their own brands as well. And this can be like a really good step into that space for them without having to handle all of the operations and logistics behind the scenes where sure it's a collaboration, but they're going to put so much more effort and authenticity into all the content that they make. They'll be incentivized to go above and beyond that. Now, obviously you have to be at a certain stage of a brand to appeal to a big influencer. But I think that's a really good way to look at things. Now, another thing you've done so well, clearly you've built your whole personal brand off this, is organic content. And you made a point before, which I agree, like the brands as they scaled, you're not going to scale your business by just more organic content, but it is a really good way to start and is a really good way to bring in profitable revenue at the start of your business be able to have the budgets to go hard on Facebook ads. And if you need to, take a couple of weeks or a month of, losing a little bit of money in your ads to figure it out, to then get it to break even rise and start to scale. You can't deny, look at the last, you and you were having a good chat before the podcast. They built their brand off organic content. What has been your general thoughts around the rise of organic content and how people and brands have been able to utilize it to kickstart their businesses?
If you can master content, like you've mastered a lot of your business. Honestly, I believe that because content also feeds into Facebook ads over time.
For sure.
Like if you creatively test and you know what works and you're really on top of what your audience wants to see and what the algorithm wants and you're constantly iterating content ideas and you know marketing. Like that's all I will say. Content is very important. It gets you to a certain level. Absolutely. I'm talking about scale when like you're going into the 8 figures, right? It actually can't get you there.
It just won't work.
No, because people do get fatigued too. And then you're relying on an algorithm. You don't want to do that. You want to make money while you sleep. So that's why I always say Facebook ads and Google ads they're just there, stable, that you're paying for money, you're paying for them, but then they bring in money.
And if you're killing it with organic, you take your best performing pieces of organic content, you put that into a paid platform and it's 99% of the time going to do really well. Your CPMs are going to be low. It's going to be showed to more people for less money.
Exactly.
You already know people are interested in it. And like sometimes it doesn't even have to be a video that's really product focused or sales focused. Sometimes if you can just entertain someone and like take them on a journey, that's enough. Like I'm sure you've seen in comments for brands, I don't even know what this product is or I don't even need it, but I'm just buying it because I love what you guys are about. There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The number of times I've seen
You've told me about comments like that yourself, actually. Yeah.
the number of times I'm like, what is this product that they're selling? I don't have any issues like health wise, but I feel like I need to buy it. It is incredible to have brand. You know what? It's so rare though. Brands do not know how to master organic content and they try so hard. They don't know how to do it. So what's the secret sauce? The secret sauce is to do lots and lots of different types of video content all the time to see what works for your audience. Like you need to trial everything and takes so much work. It's effort. It takes time. It costs you time in the business too because you're like, what should I film? I want to do a day in my life. I want to do this. People won't get it right. Like make 100 videos and they're all going to be shit. And then 101, it'll go viral and you're like, I reckon I can do this more and more. But you got to get to 100 videos. Most of the time people just stop at 50 going, it's not getting me anywhere.
Organic content doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, you're wrong because I could point to, 100 brands that are killing with organic content. You just haven't found what works for you. And just because they're doing, founder focused documenting the journey and your version of that, it's not really getting the reach that you want. What doesn't mean documenting the journey, founder style content doesn't work. It just means that worked for them. It's not working for you yet. Like, obviously, let's compare your content to theirs. What are the differences?
Yes.
Maybe we can try get yours close to that level. Or maybe for your product, maybe a more product focus. Or maybe this is going to work for organic content.
You don't know.
You don't know and you have to test, right?
Yes.
Do you have a process for like getting ideas or testing new content? Like you've gone really hard on the organic content stuff for yourself. How do you come up with, and this is the question I get all the time.
Yeah.
I can't think of ideas to.
You don't need to think of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
You base it off of other people.
Oh,
you don't think of your own ideas and that's fine. Like I reckon I will go through TikTok and there are nights where I'm on TikTok and I'm scrolling not for like just scrolling's sake. I actually have a dedicated TikTok account, which is I've built the algorithm to only show me the content that I want to take inspiration from. So you look at it and you pause the video, you write down the hook in your notes app and you write down the length of the video and you write down what they filmed as well. Also the script, you can download that video and watch it later. And I feel like you take that and you go, how can I build that into you look at all these small businesses, suddenly they've gotten 300,000 views on a video and you're like, I think I can do that in my business. You go and take that and put it into your business. Don't worry about coming up with your own ideas. If you want to show a day in the life, go do that. If you want to show your product, go do that. But if you want videos that do well, take inspiration. And then once you start to take inspiration and see what works, then you'll start to think of your own ideas. You don't need to always have that pressure on yourself to always think of something new all the time.
100%. Do you have any brands that come top of mind that people can go and look at and study?
TBH Skincare. Immediately.
We're going to have them on the podcast talking to Jessie about that. That'll be cool one. Rachel, right?
She's so smart, that girl, and she's so young. Is she coming on the podcast?
She will at some point. We're talking to Jessie about it. She's
Jessie, yeah. So Rachel, TBH Skincare, the way that she's got a team now of social media people, so it's a bit different, okay? But even when she didn't and it was just her, still super clever and just really creative in the way she does things. And what I like about her brand is she leverages current things that are happening in pop culture and she will do a video around it. And the number of people coming into that top of funnel who've never heard about TBH but are so inquisitive because of how good the content is amazing. And then the minute they click through and they're like, oh, I don't need skincare right now, and they click out, they're already part of the mid funnel. So then they've got ads running to that, and they've got emails running to that. So it's incredibly clever to use TikTok as top of funnel.
100%. I think one of my favorite brands, I mentioned this in the podcast a few weeks ago, but Midday Squares. Do you follow them?
No.
I had to mention it to you because I know how much you love content. Check them out. They're an American company. They sell like chocolate bars. And it's just so cool.
Is it? What do they do?
So cool. So they're pinned, if you watch their pinned videos, it'll give you a good understanding. I think Yui told me about them like a year ago. So I've been following for a while. Now it's just, I'm just so fascinated by the journey they're going. Like their overarching storyline is David versus Goliath. Like 90% of the chocolate industry is owned by like 4 companies. Anytime a company ever gets big enough, they get bought out by one of them and you can't really, break through that ceiling and they're like, fuck this, we're going to disrupt that industry. We're going to go really hard. So they document the journey. They get the community really involved. They launched into Costco. We're like, guys, we're launching into Costco for 300 stores. If we do really well here, they're going to put us in all these stores. We need you guys to do this. And they're smashing all their sales records for their products. And just really interesting at the moment. They're in New York and they're doing like meeting after meeting after meeting and they take you on that journey. And because I know their why and the journey that they're going on, I can't stop watching. You can't even buy it in Australia.
Oh,
like
damn.
Or maybe, well, they're not, it's all American focused, but I'm still so intrigued by
I love that.
You'll love it.
I actually would love that.
You'll love it.
I love following brands like that. I have to say, is it Alia? Is that how you say it? Alia Bottle? TikTok content, out of this world.
Crazy, yeah.
Like if you want to know how to make your brand interesting when your product is interesting, but it's just a product, right? It's just a product.
A hot water bottle.
It's a hot water bottle, right? Like how do you make your brand interesting when your product is not that interesting? That should be a book in itself.
Well, then what they've done, they've combined the two things we were just talking about, content and community.
Yes.
Two biggest things.
Yeah. Well, they have a great product, a great community, but I have to say the content is not easy to produce what they do. So it always starts with a reaction and there's always a truck coming and then like, and there's like orders coming out and it's so aspirational, but it's also relatable because it's like two, like husband, wife or boyfriend, girlfriend.
Engaged,
like,
fiancés.
Yeah. Doing this together and it's just just go and watch their stuff, I reckon, because you can get so much inspiration from that.
I agree. And it's hard. Like I get questions all the time. Oh, what's working now? They just want like gold nugget. Okay, make this type of video.
Yes.
100,000 views guaranteed. But it's not like that. A lot of different things are working for a lot of different brands. You have to test so obviously I framed that question. There is no answer, but is there anything that comes to mind in the last couple of weeks or month that you've seen, oh, that's a cool type of content that's working for brands? Anything that pops to mind?
I think just honestly being as like unpolished as possible, focusing in on the hook, as we know, like a hook is so important, but then also like have a little bit of a shock factor. If you could really perfect the shock or the real surprise factor, you're onto something. And that's why they do the little phone shaking when they like do the video first, or when, you see the reactions or you see the truck coming and you hear oh my God, it's coming, like it's a truck full of stuff. It's a bit of a shock. Yeah. And that is actually the key to doing things. Because when you're like, hey guys, I'm introducing a new water bottle and this is what it looks like. I've designed it. Like no one cares.
No one cares.
No one cares. There's actually this girl, I can't even remember her name. I'm going to find it later. But she was saying even in your hook, having a number in there, like 98 people have said da-da-da-da, or win $105 if you do. Like having a little bit of a shock factor is like, I think, a winning strategy.
There's a bunch of cool pages I follow on Instagram, like Viral Video Club, and like there's a bunch of content creators. Brock Johnson, I think, is one.
Yes, he's one.
Insta Coach Mike does some other kind of.
They do a lot of trend-based stuff.
But like just educate yourself, like follow aspirational brands and then go to some of these people and see if you can take inspiration from what they're doing. One thing I really liked that you spoke about, you gave an example of before, is how you use AI to generate you even more content ideas. Could you explain how you do that? It's pretty simple.
You know what? I actually use AI. So I'm creating this new brand called Future Memories, and I don't have time to have models and stuff like that. Like I don't have any time at all. So I'm using AI to generate the videos, the images, the copy, everything. The whole brand is generated by AI, but it's got my personality in it, and like it's awesome. So you know what? Everyone starts with ChatGPT, but ChatGPT has all these other extra little plugins. And have you seen that on the left-hand side? You can have all these little apps that you can include with it, and they have image generators, video generators. They've got like a bunch of different things. So like I just try different ones. I go to Canva, create stuff. You know what? Just do whatever it takes to like create something. So when I have tips for AI, no, because I'm just like going in and playing around with it. And
that's the thing. You've got to invest the time in it, right?
Yeah. And like it'll take you 10 minutes to go in, put in a prompt and be like, oh, that image looks awesome, And
100%.
then I take that into Photoshop, and like obviously I know Photoshop because you've got to Photoshop so many things when you're starting. And like I Photoshop Future Memories onto it, and it's easy.
ChatGPT, like everyone's heard of it. Kind of, it's a little bit died down to the hype around it like 6-7 months ago. Obviously still heaps of people are using it, but it all comes down to how you train it and the prompts that you put in to get the final end result that you want. And just another example that you used that I thought was really cool. What you can do is like you go to your TikTok and you go, hey, these are my best performing 10 videos from the last 3 months. Give me, 20 more ideas based on these, right? Yeah. And then it will spit out ideas for you. Like there's no excuse.
But even better than that is like forget your TikTok videos, just get your customer reviews and then feed all of your customer reviews as an Excel or a CSV file into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you use and say like, why do people not want to buy from me? And then create content around that. Like that is the stuff that you should be, and then have those videos on TikTok, but also have them on your website too as your frequently asked questions.
That's such a good tip.
Yeah.
That's actually unique. I've never heard someone say that before.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's really cool. How do you feel like AI is going to continue to develop over the next 5 years?
Oh, that's what a
It's
loaded
impossible to
question.
predict,
I don't
right?
know. I think though that there is a danger in not knowing what's real and fake. I think in 5 years we're going to really have the issue of, because I'm creating a full website with products and everything. Like you could have, there's apps, and I think Go Tolstoy is doing this really well. They're doing something where it's a photo of you. You're asked to say a few things, and then you type in the script, and it's you talking to the camera, and then you don't need to do face to camera content because the AI
That's
of you
scary
does
a
it.
little bit, though.
And so, how do you know what's real and what's not? Like, if Donald Trump says something, or if Kamala Harris says something, is it actually them saying it? Yes or no? And so, I think that that's where it's going. There's gonna be a lot more regulation around it. There is nothing that beats original content of you, though. So I think that there's AI in your business, but I think what everyone needs to focus on is originality.
And the scary thing is about the rate of, technological improvements. You see it now, you can kind of, most of the time, unless it's like someone spent a lot of time on it, you'd be like, okay, like that's probably AI. But, text to video didn't even exist, 18 months ago. And look, it's almost fucking nailed it already.
Yeah.
Give it another year, give it 5 years and you have no chance to.
Have you seen those TikTok videos that come up and it says AI generated?
I have, yeah.
And supposedly that's like 40% of TikTok videos now. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
I'm not big on TikTok as a user. I wish I could be. Like, I know you've spent time like just on the platform to research. So I miss a lot of that. I'm very, Instagram.
Are you very
generation.
Instagram?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm moving back to Instagram. I do like it.
It's just such a time drain potentially on TikTok. And on that piece we were talking about before about, Yui and Danielle, when they make the videos, it might go for 2 minutes, but something's changing every couple of seconds that keep you interested. It's a little bit depressing for society that we need to be so changing everything and everything needs to be about capturing attention and holding attention. And it's like, if you are not getting the exact amount of dopamine you need, you'll scroll.
It's sad, but it's also just that's life.
It's reality.
And also you can not chop and change. There is an account now, this guy's cancelled on TikTok, but I don't know if you saw Be Better. Be Better is a TikTok account. He always used to talk about the downfall of X. So he would say the downfall of Blake Lively, the downfall of Selena Gomez, and he would talk about all these things. And he was a good storyteller. And that wasn't chopping and changing. There was no chopping and changing at all. It was just him talking to cameras. If you're a good storyteller, you can also do that.
That's even harder, I feel,
it's
to be
even
a great
harder.
storyteller.
So that's why the chopping and changing is actually quite easy. Here's like a water bottle. Here's me having coffee. Here's me walking the dog. It's so much easier.
100%. Yeah, but I think like you mentioned before, if you can master the art of content creation, that'll go a long way to you being successful in business. And I don't think that's even going to change I think content will be the core of what we do for the next little bit. It'll be interesting. We cannot predict what AI will be doing in 5 years. So it's really hard to make predictions about that in the future.
I do think, I'll say one thing, not only is content good for just like, creating content and learning about it, but content will make you learn how to fail so fast. And it's really nice because you'll fail constantly with content. Sometimes your views are so low, and it's the people that keep pushing through that will see ultimate success, like with anything. And content is a really good way to do that, just to get you used to feeling like I failed multiple times today because my content's not performing. But you've got to push through it because I feel that's how content is nowadays. You just can't predict what's going to work and what's not.
100%. And was there a moment for you, I imagine, like on your way up of building it, like you get all these views and then all of a sudden, one video might not perform as well as the others, and then one will and then the next one won't. Mentally, was that like something you had to like make yourself okay with and detach yourself from the performance of like how many views every post gets? Yeah,
we were talking about this before. There's some point you've got to stop looking at the views. You got to stop looking at the likes, stop looking at anything, post it, reply to comments and leave. And not allow that your self-worth to be determined by how many likes and views you get.
100%. Now, we've obviously spoken quite a bit about organic. I think is such a great strategy for a startup brand, but what's going to be relevant to all brands as they look to scale is obviously paid media. In terms of like Facebook ads, Meta ads, obviously Facebook and Instagram ads, it's probably still the most powerful tool for e-com businesses. Talk to me about the pros and cons of, going in-house versus going with an agency. I know you're kind of the anti-agency girl, but talk to me about your thoughts around, the pros and cons of each and why you feel like it's important for people to understand and educate themselves on these platforms themselves.
You should educate yourself anyway, whether you have an agency or not.
Yeah,
so if you have an agency, you should just know your ads account so well that you know what the agency is actually telling you, and you're only using the agency because you just genuinely don't have the time to do it yourself anymore. And that's fine. But if you want to bring it in-house, which I highly recommend, you can save a lot of money. The pros of that is, one is you're probably saving about $4,000 to $5,000 a month in the agency fee. But also you can see every single day without waiting for a weekly report how your ads accounts are doing. What's the ad, like the ad creatives are so important. Are they being fatigued? Can you look at like the cost per acquisition, the ROAS? You're looking at that so intricately. This is your money. You're putting $5,000 in or maybe $30,000 of ad spend a month. Like that is your money. So why would you give that away without understanding like how ads work?
You're outsourcing arguably the most important part of your business after you've got the product.
And you're only outsourcing it because it's too hard. But it's actually not that hard. Like I could teach you it in a minute.
It's just the uncomfortable factor of going in and learning something new, and when a human is doing something that they don't know and they're like, well, how do I do this? And like, it makes you feel stupid. It's such a limiting thing, but you just need to push past that because once you learn it, you will feel so much more free because you don't have to run away from that because you do know.
Yeah.
You do know. You can't outsource that if you want to be like successful in e-com. I think it's just one of the most important things, but I know you've done quite a bit of like consulting to brands in the past. And what do you think? Is there anything that stands out as like common mistakes people do when they're setting up their Facebook ads?
Yeah, they just leave it. They just set it up and they leave it. Yeah. And then they'll have one ad creative in each campaign and they'll just leave it and they think, what's going on? Like, how come it's not working?
Yeah.
And you've got to have lots of ads to test, right? You've got to test things all the time. Another big mistake is not looking at it often enough. So, you have to look at this daily. Depends on your spend. And then you have to also know when to just kill an ad. Like that is your goal, is to know when to kill an ad and when to set up new creatives. And another mistake, especially early stage founders, what they do is they keep changing the bloody budget every day because they're nervous. They're like, oh, I've upped it to $50 a day, but it's not working. So I'm going to make it go back down to $20 a day or whatever it is. But you're restarting that learning phase over and over and over and over again. Your ads are just going to tank. Like every change you make, you need to see a little while, like you need to see probably about 2 weeks, depending on the budget, of is this working or not? So there's like a few things that brands do and they just get nervous. But the biggest thing is, one is fully educate yourself. So many free resources on YouTube. Honestly, you could learn this yourself. The second thing is make sure you have heaps and heaps of ad creatives. So take your Instagram videos, take your TikTok videos that are working well and start there.
You made a really good point, people putting one creative in per campaign and wondering why it doesn't work. I know it's kind of hard to explain on a podcast, but do you have like a general guide or a best practice as a rough starting point for some good things to do in terms of the setup of the account? Because that's where people get a lot of like, I don't know how to set it up. What am I doing? Do you have any like structures that you kind of abide by most of the time?
It's the same thing as the funnel. So you've got top of funnel, mid funnel and bottom of funnel. And that's how I usually structure it. And then there's this thing called Advantage Plus, which uses AI and you don't need to choose an audience. So I will always have like a few Advantage Pluses and they're for different campaigns. Different collections. Then I'll have a top of funnel, a mid funnel and a bottom of funnel. And that's really the structure that most people need to have. And within each of them, you can choose your audiences for the top of funnel all the way down to bottom of funnel. But the main thing is the ad creatives, like you need to make sure that, say, for example, with your top of funnel, you're spending $100 a day, you need to have like 6 ad creatives testing against each other at all times. With Advantage Plus, I think you can have up to 20 or something. Have 20 in there, test them, and then you can turn them off or toggle them off when you need to. But make sure that when you're setting it up, you only need to have a certain number of campaigns. Like you don't need to change that. All you're changing every day, if you need to, is the ad creative.
And you mentioned having Advantage Plus and having the more segmented top of funnel, mid funnel, bottom of funnel, which is kind of how it used to all be. What have you noticed? Because I speak to brands all the time. Some people we're 80% Advantage Plus.
Yes.
Some are flipped where they're like 10, 20% Advantage Plus and the rest is in their, more segmented funnel. In your experience, either with your own brands or other people you've worked with, what's your preference, or where do you see more budget tend to go for you?
I think you need to spread it out honestly between top of funnel and Advantage Plus, taking the most amount of budget. Then obviously mid funnel and bottom of funnel, it's less of a pool of people. So it's just less budget. But, Advantage Plus sometimes goes so well and then sometimes it completely fails.
But you're less in control with it. It's a little bit luck, which it never is, because there's a lot of elements that make a good video or a good brand or a strong offer and a good website to convert them. But you don't necessarily have as much control as you might like. So Advantage Plus could fluctuate.
Yes,
right?
exactly. I like having a little bit of control with my top of funnel.
Yeah, me too.
Especially with packaging, right? Like we target businesses. So I want to target only businesses. Whereas if I did an Advantage Plus, I don't know where it's going. I don't have that access. Like I don't, and it's also targeting also my mid funnel and my bottom of funnel. And I don't have only top of funnel, and I need to have a really cold top of funnel just to make sure that I know that new people are being hit.
And what sort of ad creatives are you seeing working now? Obviously, it's not going to be one type, but what sort of ad creatives do you generally see perform well in 2024?
Right now, images, really clear text overlay images are working with like a really cool product photo and then text overlay. Another thing that's working I'm speaking from the Hero Packaging account. Our Instagram videos that look really odd. Like the hook was something along the lines of, I can't believe how many DMs I get about this. That's the video that I cannot turn off because it is producing so much revenue for us, so much ROAS. I can see that the frequency, so like people are getting quite fatigued with it. It's like 3 to 4, but I can't turn it off. The results are like so high. So like ugly videos, I would call them ugly videos, and then image with text overlays.
And some people can really overcomplicate things. And I think the bigger your account gets, obviously you're going to look at the smaller details more. But for the people earlier on in kind of the growth process with scaling meta ads, what are the main metrics that you think are important to really understand?
I would say cost per acquisition. So how much so for example, if you spend $1, is that what it is? No, cost per acquisition, sorry. And then ROAS is if you spend $1, how much are you actually making? Right? So they're the only two things I actually look at.
Like if you want to, and then, as you scale and you want to reverse engineer the process and you've got experience, you're like, okay, where are people falling off? Then you can do that. But at the start, as long as your cost per acquisition is low enough and your ROAS is high enough, obviously at some point we'll dig a little bit deeper into those as we start to scale it, because the small percentages really translate into, big, increases in revenue or profit. But as long as you manage those two and you understand where your break-even ROAS is as a brand,
yeah,
and you don't go underneath that, and you know where you need to be profitable, like have fun with it. Like that's the main things. I think people can overcomplicate it a lot. Moving away from like the Facebook stuff, we'll start to kind of wrap up and touch a few subjects before we do. With website optimization, how much of a focus do you guys put on, CRO or, making small tweaks to your website? What's kind of your approach to website improvements and conversion rate optimization?
I think the only thing I would say that we focus on is, can people find what they need to find in 2 clicks? That is the only thing I focus on. Make sure it's fast. So I'm always checking speed. But then other than that, if they've come from Instagram or Facebook, if they've come from TikTok, if they've come from SEO, and they've come because of a certain thing and then they can't bloody find it on your website, that's the thing that's going to get people off. So my thing is always, can they find everything? So what I've done is like implemented a smart menu. So I think all businesses should do that. Smart menu, it's very visual. People who don't want to read a lot of stuff, they can visually see what they're clicking into. I removed the main banner off the homepage. I just have many banners, like small banners to get to the collection that they need to get to. Our conversion rate is like 11% every day.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's really high.
Yeah, it's really high.
Wow. And do you use heat maps, use anything like that to help figure out kind of where people are going?
I don't look at them often, if I'm honest. Like it's probably once a month.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, I get too into it and I have to leave. But I think we use Microsoft Clarity.
Okay,
because it's free.
We've used Hotjar in the past.
But that's paid though. Yeah. So I was like,
no need.
No need, yeah.
But it's really cool. I think like people, like a mistake I see people make, and it's, everyone's busy in e-com. There's a lot of things to do, is like they think their website is a set and forget once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
Like for a period, maybe if you've got a small budget, but if you're not, testing things and optimizing, eventually it's gonna, like your ads will fatigue. Eventually your website's not going to convert and not going to stay.
I agree. And you need to merchandise it for what's happening at that point in time.
100%.
And also something that I find is just logistics is so important to people now. So making sure that before they even get to the cart, they know when you're going to be shipping it and when it's going to be delivered by. Like they know that before they hit add to cart is a very important thing, because by the time they get there, and then if they go to the cart, even in the cart, having a dynamic, a little bar to say it will be delivered by X day, it helps conversion so much.
Oh, for sure. And I think, playing around, anything you can do with that sort of stuff the earlier you can establish that and start ticking off, any objections or any concerns that could make them not convert, because it's fine. It's like some people that you've seen, like they'll have really high add to carts, and then like the conversion rate from add to cart to purchase is like sub 10%. It's like, well, there's some problems that you're not answering and putting doubts in the customers' heads. And what is that? We need to analyze what that could be and start tackling them head on, right? So I think that's really important. Something you spoke about before is building community in loyalty programs. And it's so funny. People always talk about building community, but how do you actually do it?
Like it's a loaded question. Got to read the book. But I would say that the first part of it is actually quite logical, and it is to build a loyalty program that works. So the loyalty program essentially gives people points in order to come back and make a purchase, right? So that's super easy. That's starting to build that like repeat purchase situation. Then community building comes through how you organically talk to them, and are you listening to them? So if you listen to them, you get their feedback and create a product based on them. And like, are you doing, how we talked about influencers creating products? Can you have customers creating products for you? Can you create so much demand and give them so much of a lead time that by the time it comes in, it's already sold out? Like that is actually community right there, right? Another big part of community, which I think is probably the most important thing in the world, is to make an enemy out of something. And that's like how cults do it around the world. That's how, like, if you look at, say, Donald Trump, the reason that his followers are so staunch is because he creates enemies, right? And they also want to have an enemy. Their lives aren't great or whatever, and they want to have an enemy to attack that hatred to. And so it's a really big thing for a brand. So for us, it's plastics, obviously, and that's our enemy. And we talk about that a lot. And, for example, Patagonia is like the denim trade, and it's Nike is like other brands who are only saying that, the exceptional performance is only for the elite. Actually, we believe everyone is exceptional. So that everyone has an enemy. If you notice these brands, if you can develop an enemy and actually rally your people around it, like I think that's like the start of a really good community.
Well, that's exactly like what I said Midday Squares did.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
One of the only brands that I still fully follow along with their daily content because I'm like, I fucking actually want to know.
So good.
Like, I actually want to know. And Google Ads. I know there's a chapter in there on Google Ads. We won't go into detail about how to set it all up. Obviously, very difficult to do that on a podcast. But the question I will ask is, when is the right time for an e-com brand to start like setting up Google Ads and running those?
I think it's when you need to understand your business and if people actually Googling what you sell. Like, do people actually if you're selling like something in a very crowded space, say you're selling a dress, like a black dress, you're not going to set up Google Ads. You might set it up for your brand name. But then even then it's not really going to be new traffic. It's going to be people who already know about you. So you could set it up for a competitor brand, and like anyone who types in your competitor brand, they're getting hit with your Google ad. Fine, you can get some new traffic that way. But if yours is something really like hot water bottle for, when you've got like a certain condition and people are typing that in, then you absolutely need to have an intentional based Google ad. So it really depends on the business. It's not really about when to start it. It's about, are people searching for the product that you're selling?
So when you did that research and you were, before starting Hero Packaging, and you're like sustainable packaging and looking at that, was there quite a bit of search volume for these things before you started the business? Did you
for sustainable packaging.
Yeah. And there wasn't many solutions in Australia.
When you typed in sustainable packaging, it was just like, it was nothing. It was all those really big B2B businesses that like, the Vizzies.
Yes.
Vizzies not going to target a small business, but they were coming up and I was like, that's really crap. Like we could do that.
Yeah. Interesting. Final thing before we move on to just some like bigger like advice things of people starting an e-com, I wanted to touch on like email marketing. What are some of your favorite ways or ideas strategies that brands can use to build their email list, whether it be they're already in operation, or what I think is really cool sometimes when brands can build an email list pre-launch. So when they launch, like I said, you can have all the hype built. You can either sell out on a pre-sale or you launch, you turn your website live and you look at all the sales rolling in day one. That are some of the most successful launches, I think, are brands that build a list pre-launch.
Before, yeah.
Do you have any tactics or thoughts or experiences that you can reference about how brands have been able to do that effectively?
Yeah, if you are a creator brand, obviously use your audience. If you don't have an audience, then you need to run a giveaway through ads in order to collect email addresses and then launch the product. But
Exactly.
that's honestly the only way.
Yeah.
Like people aren't coming to your site. No one knows about you if you're starting a new brand. But if you have ads set up, you run a giveaway, it's really low cost. Like
Really, like surprisingly.
like you could get, for 5 cents or whatever, an email subscriber. You can actually run the giveaway, and then when you launch, you give it out to like 5 people. There are brands that I know who run a weekly giveaway Facebook ad. So every week they actually give away a huge amount of prizes, and these prizes get bigger and bigger throughout the year, but that's how they collect like 10,000 email addresses a week.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's my piece of advice.
100%. And because again, people can overcomplicate email marketing or get a little bit too intimidated by it. They don't know where to start, don't know what to do. What are the main flows that you get brands to focus on?
Like your welcome flow. So that's when people will put in their email address and you send them the welcome flow. Usually, this is what I've heard through a good source, is that the welcome flow gets majority of the revenue of your flows. And it's usually when you give them an initial discount. So it's like $5 off your first purchase or whatever.
Whatever.
The minute they see that, they try and convert. So the welcome flow is really important. Also, something that I think is really important, which have worked really well for me, are the thank you flows. So when you get an order, you can, if say you're using Klaviyo as your mail provider, you can split it up. Is it their first order or is it they've purchased before? And if it's their first order, it's literally an email from you to say, thank you so much for buying from me. It's actually made my day. Thank you very much. Here's some other stuff if you want to know some more information and stuff like that. If they bought from you before, say like, thank you again. Like you've bought from me before and I just appreciate this so much. Like you've come back. Is there anything I can help you with? If they've placed like 10 orders or more, they get a VIP email from you saying like, you have direct access to me. This is my actual personal email address.
I love that. That's really cool.
That's what I would do. So like I like the thank you flows as well. They work really well. And then obviously your abandoned carts are like really high return.
100%. I think like if you nail those three, unless you're a brand with, 20, 30, 50 plus SKUs, I think if you focus on those ones, you're going to extract most of the juice that can be without spending like years on like cross-selling, all the different things you can do, which is a great tactic when you're a little bit more established as a brand and you have like a massive database and you can cross-sell products to your customer base. But I think that was really good. Now, we'll start to wrap up. I have a few last questions or like advice that, we can give to people that are starting their own brand, which I know is like pretty much all you do. And I know this is a general one that gets thrown around a lot, but I'm always interested because people always answer this based on their own perspective.
Yeah.
What's worked for them in the last year that they've seen work. But if you're starting an e-com brand again today from scratch, which you are, where would you start and what would be the main marketing channel for the business in the early stages?
So I am creating a new e-com brand and what I love is that I'm a creator-led brand. So starting an e-commerce brand from scratch when you have no audience and you have to do everything from 0 followers is very hard to do. And what I like is I'm going to be using Instagram and TikTok to not only sell out the products, but also talk about how to build it in public. And I think people are really interested in that story. And so for me, it's going to be social media led. It's going to be community led. And then I don't have to pay any money for it, which is so nice.
It's great. I was on a podcast as a guest in the last couple of months one time and someone said to me, the question essentially was, if you're like 18 years old and you had no budget, you had no previous experience and you wanted to start a business, where would you start? So don't even start thinking about starting a business for the next 2 years. Build a following.
Exactly.
It's going to be so much easier for you.
Is
And you can leverage that in so many different ways.
Yes, absolutely. You know what? You get to 20,000 followers on any platform.
You can do really well.
You could sell any product you want. You could start any service-based business. You could do whatever you want.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. And you'd be surprised. Like you don't need a massive following to have influence. That's that's the different thing. And best piece of business advice you've ever heard?
That I've ever heard?
That pops into mind. Is there anything that you've heard on a podcast or heard specifically to you that stuck with you?
No, not a best piece of advice, but I will give you a really tactical piece of advice. And it is, before you even start a business, make sure there is demand for the product or service that you are starting, because there are so many people starting a business now. Demand first. because either you have a big audience and you can sell whatever you like, fine. But if you don't have a big audience, test demand. And the way I tested demand was through a Google ad and a landing page and free samples. However you want to test demand, test it. But get a few hundred people really interested in what you're doing before you even hit go. Honestly, I believe that.
100%. I think there's a bunch of different really cool ways that you can do that. You gave the example with the Google ad. I've seen people do the same thing, like with a new product that doesn't exist, run ads on Facebook, set up one with a small amount of budget, build a website, minimal effort. You don't want to spend like $10,000 or like weeks and weeks and weeks building a website that for a product that doesn't exist yet. But you say, okay, I'm going to spend $500 across the week as a testing budget. And we'll see, what sort of return we get on our ads. Do we get conversions? And then anyone who converts like, oh, sorry, we're out of stock. I've refunded your order. You'll be first to know when we get in stock. Sorry for the inconvenience. The refund's already processed. If you've already processed the refund, you apologize. These people aren't going to get angry with you. You can do that. Like organic content as well. Like if you just want to, okay, let me get a sample of something that's close enough, right? Or let me create 30 pieces of content. Let's see, are people interested in it? Can I get people interested in it? If you can't, sure, there's the whole thing of like maybe those first 30 pieces of content weren't great and you could have got better, but it's still a really good indication, again, for people that are more in the traditional e-com space of like private label and drop shipping. If there's like a really good version of your product that you want to private label and maybe make some customizations or, you know what I mean? Maybe the MOQ is like 500 and it's going to cost you like a decent amount of money. Is there like a similar product that you could maybe drop ship? Because that way, if you drive people to the site, whether it be from organic content or a paid ad, obviously it's not as ideal as the version you want to launch with, but if you can make some money back off that, use the bit of profit or the bit of cash you've generated from that to invest in the, bulk stock that you want to do, great. So there is a lot of ways you can do that. Unfortunately, with not all businesses and products, you can test it. Well, actually using the 4 examples we gave, I'm sure there is, but I think too many people just think I'm going to invest 10 grand or 20 grand, whatever it is when they start a business, throw the Hail Mary.
And they're like, this is an amazing product. And they don't realize, they don't do their research.
You have to, yeah.
And like just go onto Google Keyword Planner and see how many people are searching for it. It's really basic. You just need to know, is it in demand or not? Can I just say one more piece of advice?
Yeah,
everything
please.
is Googleable. So like actually Google your product, like Google your questions, like look at YouTube, do heaps and heaps of educating, like for yourself, and then actually start. Like, don't just go into be like, now what do I do? I need a coach. No, you need to just Google it.
Yeah. That didn't exist as much when we started.
Yeah.
So there's so many free resources now that I think you can pretty much learn anything online. A question I really wanted to ask you personally as well, because it's something that I experience in my life, but you've got multiple projects that you're working on now.
Yeah.
How do you manage time management and prioritization as effectively as possible?
I don't think I'm the best person to answer this question, honestly. I do what I enjoy. So I don't do hundreds of projects. I do the things I really want to do in my life. And I say no to lots of things, but I'm doing maybe 3 or 4 things at the same time. And while that may seem like a lot, there is enough time in the day that I've decided that I can do it. Also, I have a very good partner who takes a lot of the responsibility when it comes to the kids and the home life. And if I need to work at the warehouse late to work on a project that I'm interested in, I can do that without having to feel guilty.
Yeah. It's a never like, who is the master at answering that question? I'm not. I don't think you can be at our age. Like, I think, just for me anyway, in my experience, I look at like operators that have been in business for like, several decades. And I think they've probably figured their shit out. I've been in business for 7 years. Like, I'm just doing my best here as well. I can share with you.
I used to time block and stuff, but I don't do that anymore. I feel like when you've got something to do, like you just get it done.
Yeah. I guess burnout becomes a real issue then in business, and, we've both been extremely stressed at times and you don't get your best work done. I think for me, like my biggest advice, if you're in that position, is like I said, you're never going to get everything done. Like there's never a time if you're in e-com that your whole to-do list, there's nothing I can do. Doesn't exist. If you've only got limited amount of time, and it might not always be the things you enjoy doing most, and this is why sometimes I don't always take my own advice, but what are the most important tasks you need to get done in a day? Whether it be 3, whether it be 5, what are they? Get them done first. And if that takes you an hour and you get nothing else done because you're working with your team or you get sidetracked, whatever, you've had a really productive day. Whereas it can be really easy in e-com to be being busy and doing all the things you think you need to do.
And you don't know what you've done.
Because you just want to distract yourself and be busy, because that kind of little bit hard thing to do is really important, but you got to figure it out and you don't really feel like doing that. By avoiding those things, you're just creating future problems.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't you think?
Yes, like priorities. So like, what are the 3 main things I need to do today? Like that is, everything else is like the nice to have.
It's a bonus,
but
right?
you must have that. And it's a nice feeling at the end of the day to go tick, tick, tick.
100%.
Gives you that little dopamine hit.
Before we wrap up, future memories, give us a little bit of a talk about this.
Honestly, it's another, like I've said, like the book is a side hustle from my main hustle, and future memories is just because I love it. Like I just wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
And it's not meant to be like a scaled up business. It's meant to be something that
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's more like, you know how I said I want to be delusional, and I love being delusional, and I think everyone should be. I think everyone should have that confidence that they're going to be successful. That's what the whole brand is about. I'm just doing product drops, like it's starting with a sweater and a cap with some completely delusional sayings on it, and like that is it. And like you buy it, we sit there as business owners, we wear it every day together. We like take content with our like little cap on and like doing work on like emails, and that's what I want for us. That's it. That's
and
all
it's
it
like
is.
very community led, like you said. So it's a passion project as well. Not going to have high costs, not going to be high marketing costs. So it'll be a good little side project for you, and we'll see.
It's just
if it
fun.
starts scaling, how much time you're like, I didn't intend to scale it, but when things start happening, it can be really hard to turn those opportunities down. But apart from that, what can people expect to see from you, and where can they find you if they want to follow along, find the book, find your businesses? Where's the best place that they can stay in touch?
Okay, so they can find me on, I think the best place to find me is Instagram at Sell Anything Online. My DMs are always open, and I do want to say this to whoever's listening as well, is that if you feel like you are really struggling in business, my DMs are literally open to like anybody who needs me, I'm there. I try and get to people like within a couple of days, but I know what it's like to be a business owner. So even if I get 100 or 200 DMs in the day, I will try and get back to everyone. So that's the best place to find me. Hero Packaging, you can obviously have a look at us there, but that's managed by a few people. So if you want to talk to me, then it's at Sell Anything Online.
I love it. And your book's live. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it in stores.
Any bookstore. Yeah.
There we go. Congratulations on your success so far. It was really good to connect. I'm glad we got to do this, sit down and have a good chat. We'll catch up in a year or so, and we'll do a part 2 whenever we have some more interesting things to talk about. Maybe it'll be future memories.
Maybe it'll be me in AI format.
I'll put all my questions in. You can send me your answers. We'll just generate it, and we won't even have to meet. But Anaita, thank you so much. Really great to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing all your value to everyone. I'm sure people get heaps out of this episode.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode or you got something out of it, do yourself a favor, do me a favor, do your friends a favor, and share this with them, and they can come along on this journey with us. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.